It's that time of year again when new devices are launched, and domestic smartphone manufacturers have moved from competing on battery capacity to making significant advancements in screen specifications. In recent years, they've finally reached the area I'm most interested in, the professional advancements in cameras and video, and right in front of me is the newly released OPPO Find X9 Ultra. 8K video recording capability, OPPO's classic Hasselblad support, sounds like all sorts of cool and exciting video features. That's what the manufacturer says, but once we have the phone in our hands, whether it can capture the satisfactory images we want, we definitely have to test it ourselves to know. As someone who loves filming documentaries, I thought, why not just shoot a short documentary to test the phone's image quality in real and harsh environments? So before filming, we definitely need to conduct some image quality tests. I have listed some testing methods I frequently use to try out the base quality of this phone one by one. To test the image quality of this phone, we definitely need to switch to its highest quality mode, which is its 8K at 30 FPS. At the same time, we need to activate its built-in log mode. Log mode is a way of compressing color information that we often use with professional cameras. Essentially, it compresses all the image information together so it appears grayish. Understanding the log curve provided by the camera manufacturer is crucial for achieving the best looking footage in post-production. Although every manufacturer can provide such a grayish image that retains a lot of shooting information, whether the log is easy to use and decode truly determines whether users can achieve their ideal colors and images. To test the log performance of this OPPO phone, I took out my beloved Nikon Red camera. Although it looks small, it is a legitimate cinema camera capable of shooting 6K raw video with a maximum bitrate of 300 megabits per second. A 512GB storage card can only capture 30 minutes of footage, which is truly a luxury in this era where memory is as precious as gold. The testing method is also very simple. You just need to take a color card and shoot one-to-one images under various conditions, then restore them to the same color in post-production. By observing the difficulty of restoration and the quality of the images, you can understand the true performance of the log mode of this OPPO phone. Generally, camera manufacturers provide their own restoration curves and white papers, making log conversion very simple and professional in such cases. However, I have also encountered many peculiar manufacturers that only provide log without offering a conversion curve, which becomes an extremely frustrating process. Fortunately, OPPO not only provides a Rec 709 conversion LUT, but also offers the ACES linear conversion curve commonly used in Hollywood. We can carefully read the white paper, study it thoroughly, and then forget everything you just saw because you actually just need to throw its conversion node into DaVinci. You can see that with just a few simple nodes, we can perform any color space conversion through the matrix and accurately adjust color temperature and exposure through the nodes, which is very simple. In the case of 8K at 25 frames, we use a tetrahedral fault plugin to convert an O-log to a standard color space I often use. We can see that OPPO provided this O-log 2 curve, and with the H.265 10-bit color depth and bitrate, its footage retains enough information to freely adjust exposure. Of course, it definitely doesn't have as wide an adjustment range as professional cameras, and the lower quality of the footage is evident. In well-lit conditions, we can adjust the exposure to overexpose or underexpose by 1.5 to 2 stops without significantly altering the image quality. However, increasing exposure in poorly lit areas will reveal the lost details in the shadows. Overall, the usability of these images is still very high. Another advantage of 10-bit color depth is the flexibility in adjusting color temperature. Here, we can see that when we shoot with normal color temperature, we can adjust the color temperature to exaggeratedly warm or exaggeratedly cool, while the image color still maintains almost the same quality as when you adjust the color temperature in camera. Although the color of Komodo is not as natural in comparison, the phone's performance is actually not far off. The 10-bit color depth can also be a huge help in stylized color grading. Here we convert O-log 2 to a film preset we commonly use, which has about 32 nodes. You can see the colors have been well converted without obvious color banding. In terms of color information retention, I found that the basic color information is well preserved, and the more complex greens and human skin tones also record information well. However, with darker skin tones, we notice that the representation of red is not natural enough and requires some secondary adjustments. Overall, I think the O-log 2 curve performs very well on the Find 9 Ultra. It not only provides direct conversion nodes, but also retains a lot of material information. In terms of image quality, smartphones have been rapidly improving in recent years. With the enhancement of sensors and advancements in computational photography, OPPO offers both 4K and 8K video quality options. In our test, we found that the 8K quality shows a noticeable improvement, so we chose to use 8K as our benchmark for comparison. In terms of resolution, this phone's 8K far exceeded my expectations. Our commonly used mirrorless cameras often require extensive noise reduction, resulting in an unnatural sharpened look. However, we can see that whether shooting detailed leaves in the forest or handling facial wrinkles, when we zoom in the image to 200%, the difference with Komodo doesn't seem that significant. Compared to similar scenes with the 4K footage of leaves shot using the A7, you will notice the difference in resolution. Very different.
The 8K video from OPPO indeed stores genuine resolution, which I really didn't expect. To be honest, I originally thought the image quality of this phone would be overwhelmed by the 6K R3D material information. But when I checked on the computer, I found that at first glance, there didn't seem to be much difference in detail. If I really took an FX3, a 4K mirrorless camera, out to shoot compared to the phone, it might be hard to say whose image quality is better.
At the same time, I also found that even in dark areas, the retention of color details is stronger than many mirrorless cameras, with the green here being completely preserved. I suspect OPPO's engineers chose to reduce noise reduction intensity at the algorithm level to retain color information. However, the downside is that the color cast in dark areas becomes slightly noticeable. In the 3x lens, we can relatively easily notice color cast in the dark areas, but at the 1x wide-angle end, this issue is greatly improved, and the same shadows don't seem to have such a significant color cast. You can see that although the resolution of the phone has surpassed that of the camera, the shooting performance of the sensor still has a gap compared to its much larger counterparts. However, when you shoot normally and watch normally without zooming in 10 times, you'll find that the image quality of the phone is getting closer to that of traditional cinema cameras. In fact, if the lighting is sufficient, you might not be able to tell much of a difference. On the screen, the labeled A and B models, can you guess which one is OPPO and which one is Komodo?
Of course, I'm not saying that this Find X Ultra can really compare to the professional cinema camera behind the lens. I'm just using the Komodo as a benchmark, a standard to evaluate how far the image quality of this phone is from that of a professional cinema camera for my daily work, travel, and even just everyday life. So if one day I really need to use a phone for filming, I will know how it should be used as a material. At the same time, there are situations where I might only be able to use a phone for filming, and at that point, I need to know its upper and lower limits to use the phone more conveniently for shooting. After discussing so many technical aspects, let's talk about its user experience. No matter how good the image quality is, if the phone feels terrible to use, you probably won't want to take it out to shoot anything, let alone capture beautiful images, right? Returning to the OPPO native camera interface, we can see that in the professional video mode, the parameters you need to adjust are clearly placed on one side of the screen, while the other side is for image quality adjustment parameters that don't need frequent changes.
It comes with a built-in LUT that can be toggled on and off with one click, and you can even import your own LUT. In the phone's native camera software, all your settings in professional mode, such as shutter speed, ISO, color temperature, etc., will not change if you exit the software or adjust parameters in other modes. Similarly, switching lenses will also retain the original parameter settings. Of course, the apertures of the two lenses are different, so there will be changes in exposure. The professional mode also supports histogram and audio current monitoring. I think the most useful feature in the camera software is the ability to freely place different shooting modes wherever you want, adjust which shooting modes are displayed on the main interface, and freely adjust the order, instantly giving a sense of entering modern society. Comfortably, in 8K 30 FPS log mode, the screen brightness is bright enough to be clearly visible under sunlight. It's just a pity that the aperture parameter cannot be adjusted yet, and the current aperture data is not indicated on the interface. Also, when switching lenses, it's not possible to see whether optical or digital switching is used. At the same time, OPPO does not yet support Blackmagic Cam, which is indeed a bit unfortunate for users with more professional needs. Now that we've talked about the operating experience, let's discuss how to equip your camera to make shooting easier and more convenient.
Usually when we need to attach a tripod and stabilizer, we need an Arca base. And if we want to shoot handheld, we might want a side handle or a top handle to make the footage more stable. If you need to attach a microphone, don't you need a cold shoe mount? Most importantly, when filming, you need an ND filter, right? This way your shutter speed will have a cinematic feel.
Alright, now all the preliminary preparations are complete and we can finally start shooting on the day of shooting. I packed all my things into such a small bag. Wow, I haven't felt this relaxed in a long time. Then I drove to a distillery an hour away where Master Liu's friend works. It's a relatively rare distillery that uses traditional methods to make wine, and this place feels very culturally rich. The filming method is no different from our traditional documentary filming, just interviews and footage recording. As for the equipment, this time, besides my phone, I only brought a 600D and a reflector for a bit of facial fill light, as some places are really too dark and it wouldn't look good without light. For the other B-roll parts, I used natural light entirely. Although the lighting in this cellar is very dim, to be honest, I was a bit worried, but since I did detailed testing beforehand, I think this phone should be able to capture it well. I wonder if you feel that this footage accurately records the lighting effect on site. I think the overall effect is still very good, although it is indeed a bit dark here. The images of people seen under this high contrast feel very textured, so what would it be like to seriously shoot a short film with a phone? 就是说像大家看
If I had to describe it in one word, I would say it's relaxing. I don't know why, but this spring in Chengdu, especially when we were filming, was very hot. Spending an entire afternoon in such a stuffy place like the distillery, believe me, if you experience it, you might not want to smell alcohol for a month. Speaking of which, in such relatively harsh environments, many times when something suddenly happens, you just grab your phone and go. Your peripherals or any attachments become very easy to handle without much hassle. Of course, capturing footage is one thing, but whether the footage is good is another concept. I wonder if after seeing these shots, you think a phone is already sufficient for some everyday filming. For me, I think having a phone with such image quality that I can carry daily allows me to capture many everyday life moments in a professional way that I couldn't capture before. For me, this is actually a huge advantage. If you ask me whether I can use this thing to shoot a professional documentary or a lifestyle vlog, I would say that the image quality performance of this thing is already sufficient to meet our various requirements, especially when your equipment is not particularly professional. It might even have better image quality than your equipment. Moreover, its portability allows you to capture scenes you might not usually be able to, which I think is a huge advantage. Of course, there's the elephant in the room that I haven't mentioned, and what is that? This phone in its video shooting has an issue. It cannot achieve the kind of massive bokeh and very shallow depth of field with a strong sense of separation like a professional full-frame DSLR, whether it's a 50mm 1.4 or a 35mm 1.2. In photography, computational photography technology has become very advanced, to the point where you might not be able to tell if the effect is calculated by the phone or if it's genuine bokeh. However, in video shooting, which heavily relies on phone performance and algorithms, we have yet to see a particularly mature computational photography bokeh solution. Although we can use teleconverters to achieve significant bokeh, if we can only use telephoto lenses, we will have fewer options in everyday shooting. This is the issue I truly hope manufacturers can solve one day. Because you see, if I just go out with a phone, I don't need to carry any large equipment, nor do I need to bring 4 or 5 lenses. I think I would feel really relaxed, and I can capture a lot of beautiful scenes. We can only say that we are really looking forward to that day. Filming with a phone has only been a few years, and it's already reached this stage. Who knows what kind of phone we'll be using to capture what kind of scenes in 2 or 3 years, right? This concludes this video. If you like my video, please like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next episode.